and welcome to another video of Okto's YouTube channel. It's another interesting special partnership video. And today we are talking to the WOOFi team. We have George Heath, who takes care of marketing at WOOFi, to talk to us about the Okto WOOFi partnership, which just happened recently. And we have some exciting earning opportunities on our app by WOOFi. So let's welcome George to talk about that. Hi, George.
Hello, Manisha. Thank you so much for having me on. Real pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So George, we are talking about the Okto WOOFi partnership. If you can first begin with your intro and talk to us about the partnership. How are you feeling about it?
Of course, yeah, sure. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is George. I'm the marketing manager over here at WOOFi. You can think of my role really as being responsible for striving to capture and really communicate, the awesomeness of what we're building over here, which is really like cross-chain DEX with the ambition to let anyone, swap any major asset across any major chain, what we would consider the most competitive pricing, but also give access to what we consider the most competitive yields and unlock, institutional yield opportunities for users. And as for the Okto partnership with WOOFi, I think this stems from the fact that we are very much two sides of the same coin in the outlook that we share towards DeFi, which is that I think we both perceive the landscape as being fraught with challenges for users who are looking to onboard into the space. I think as a whole there are still too many obstacles for a user when it comes to interacting with new protocols, understanding what the blockchain is. And I think both of us, despite by nature being different protocols, right, one being a wallet and one being a DEX, I think we're both trying to really solve for this in different ways. Okto is doing it, I think, largely by really aggregating different earning opportunities and sort of sourcing and presenting one central location for the user, and WOOFi is sort of trying to do it by connecting what we consider to be lots of fragmented blockchains. And I think we saw an obvious avenue for us to collaborate, which was to grab our WOOFi supercharger vaults and make these directly accessible inside the Okto wallet.
Talking about vaults, can you explain us the term, and can you talk to us about how is a WOOFi vault different that people can find on Okto?
When we're talking about wallets here, I think you explain this to someone outside of crypto is going to be a slightly foreign concept, right? Because I think most of them are used to the idea of a physical wallet and not a digital wallet. And what we are talking about here is it's a wallet that you and only you yourself own via digital keys, which basically act as what would be your username and password. And the idea is that with a digital wallet, you have complete self-custody of your funds, right? And this is why we in Web3 like digital wallets, because I think we're all bullish on the concept of self-sovereignty. We don't want a centralized party having the ability to interfere with our funds. We like the security of knowing that ultimately it is only ourselves that have access to our funds. We are essentially the bank who manages our own assets, right? And I think what we're doing here between WOOFi and Okto is something which it's quite fascinating, which is the idea that inside that digital wallet that you yourself own, you have your assets inside it. You essentially are gaining access to what we would dub probably institutional yield opportunities here at WOOFi. So without actually having to leave the Okto wallet, whatsoever, you can do this literally natively inside the app. You could have a crypto coin. It might be Ethereum, it might be Bitcoin, it could be thousands of any different altcoin, and you would be able to deposit that into a WOOFi supercharger vault and essentially earn yield passively.
And you use the term which is like the compounding of interest, which is your institution. What was the term that you used, which is the compounding of interest? So my returns will be added to my earnings and then I can earn on top of it. So would you be able to explain that?
Of course I can explain that. As a user, if I own the Okto wallet, I want complete transparency over what's happening with my funds when I park them inside a WOOFi supercharger vault, right? Same with any other vault where I'm depositing my funds. I want to know exactly what's happening, and we're very transparent about this. So you're earning yield in two different ways. You can think of it, one of them, WOOFi has a liquidity manager, right? And what they're doing is they're borrowing some of the assets, in that vault to provide liquidity on WOOFi. In order to borrow your money, they're paying an interest rate. As the user, you're getting money from that fee that they are paying, right? So that's like one source of yield for you. And then there's a second source of yield, and that's because WOOFi's liquidity manager isn't necessarily going to want to borrow all of the assets in a particular vault, but they might not need it at that time. It really depends on which coins are in more demand. Where they see more demand, they'll borrow more of those assets to provide liquidity. So any assets that aren't borrowed, we would take those and we'll put them in a third-party protocol to earn yield on those. And the idea being, we want to maximize capital efficiency so that every asset down to the last cent in that vault is earning yield. Nothing is sat idle. That's how part of the reason as to why we're able to like offer what we would consider, very competitive APRs.
That's amazing. And we talked about ensuring that every penny is earning something and nothing is just kept idle because of the market demand supply. So how do you, on top of that, ensure that there's absolute safety of the user's fund? I want to go to safety, and what are the measures that you're taking which ensures and the user don't have to think twice when they try this supercharger wallet?
Yeah, great question. I think everyone in crypto is aware that there is risk in DeFi, and I think like you have to have this in mind wherever like you're assessing yield opportunities. You have to assess the risk. WOOFi, we take multiple approaches to mitigate the risk for the user. I can go through some of these. One of these would be that we would never ever release or make publicly available a product if we first like hadn't had it reviewed by experts. So of course WOOFi supercharger vaults have been properly audited, right? There's the first layer of security that comes in, and I would just strongly advise like do not park your fund in like anywhere that has not been audited unless you understand the risk that comes with that, right? So there's one aspect. The second aspect is some people they may actually be slightly hesitant about the idea of a liquidity manager coming in and borrowing their assets. But just to be clear, these smart contracts themselves prevent WOOFi as a liquidity manager from doing anything other than borrowing those assets to provide liquidity on WOOFi. They physically can't withdraw them outside of WOOFi, so you have the peace of mind of knowing that like they're not going off and like using your funds to like trade with 20x leverage on some other platform. Your funds are protected in that sense. And there's a third element as well, which is you heard me mention those third-party protocols where we're deploying the remainder of your assets. I can assure you those protocols really carefully. We would typically tend to look for blue chip projects. These are projects like Aave, like Alpaca, that have been around, that are highly respected in the space. And we tend to, even though we know we could put those assets in an alternative protocol with slightly higher yield, we would actively avoid those protocols because we know just how robust the armor plating is on a protocol, for instance, like Aave. So it's really like a triple-pronged approach there, Manisha, that we take.
Got it. So you're saying the third-party parking of the funds that we mentioned, we're not going for high-yield projects and high-risk opportunities. We're sticking to blue chip, which is high market cap, higher acceptability, high number of users maybe. So that is also being taken care of when we are saying there's a third party intervention of parking your funds somewhere.
Exactly. We just don't perceive it as being worth the risk for the user. Why would you chase a couple of extra percentage on the APR knowing that you gain a much probably higher percentage of risk to losing your assets? So that is our stance.
That's absolutely amazing. And by even doing that, there you are able to meet a cutting edge market APY on the yield. So it should also be exciting for the users to be in the game. So I think that's amazing. Talking about Okto. So this is a new app that we've recently launched. We are targeting multiple countries. It's gone global. A lot of Indians are trying it out. So have you tried it out yourself?
I have indeed, yeah. I think, when I opened the Okto wallet, it probably was the earn feature inside the wallet. I think having at my fingertips the access to hundreds of different earning opportunities for me is very exciting as a user, especially like someone who like me is quite lazy and doesn't like to visit. Right. It's I'm trying to think of an analogy here, and it almost feels to me like similar to how as a beginner when you go bowling and you may have those guardrails up down the sides of the alley which prevent the ball from falling into the pit on the side. I feel like this is the experience that I largely felt from using the Okto wallet, and I mean that in an entirely positive sense. And I think this is what we need for especially new users who crypto, and DeFi especially is a daunting space for someone who's new. Had I not been introduced to crypto via a friend who showed me how to set up a wallet and how to swap, or what providing liquidity is, how to borrow, I probably wouldn't have understood this myself, right? So I think there's much to be said for the way that Okto wallet has these guardrails up that allows you to, for instance, just earn yield without the complication of taking you to a separate UI, which can be confusing in itself. It's all native, and I think this is probably what resonated with me the most as a user and also someone who works in Web3 and sees the value of having that.
So apart from the WOOFi walls, what is your most favorite feature on Okto?
there's a swap feature inside the wallet, which I think goes back to this idea of like having a wallet which allows you to do most of these things in DeFi that would otherwise require probably quite a lot of effort, take you to a lot of different protocols. It can be quite overwhelming though, like the amount of choice in DeFi, right? I know, for instance, just how many decentralized exchanges exist, right? And then you have on top of decentralized exchanges, because DeFi is obviously extremely composable, you have aggregators, right, which are trying to aggregate the best prices. And then on top of aggregators, you have meta aggregators, which are aggregating aggregators. And to an outside user, this is like...
And for an outside user, your decision making at every level. So your decision making with what platform should be my wallet, where should I go, what is the opportunity that I can discover. Like with having a lot of options, a lot of decision making requirement also comes your way.
Correct. I like to think in analogies a lot of the time, as I did with the bowling. And again, I look at it similar to like, think of these new users as students in a classroom, right? And if we confront them with a choice of 50 different worksheets with 50 different options on them, it's not going to be helpful. I think it's actually going to have the reverse effect on the user, which is to confuse them, and it's likely to push them away. So I really like the swap function, having that again natively in the app and being able to swap assets inside a wallet. I think this is the direction generally that crypto is heading in. I think probably over time you will see that traffic headed towards like decentralized exchanges over time will reduce. I think we've already seen that. I think most traffic now is actually heading towards aggregators because people know that they can get the best prices there. And I think this will probably shift again. And I think it will probably shift towards wallets, which have aggregators kind of inside of them, and users are able to do everything in the wallet without ever having to leave it.
Absolutely. Like users should not care about if they're using that brand as a wallet. Like, so is Okto a wallet on a WOOFi platform, or is a WOOFi an earning opportunity on an Okto app? So I mean, the user should be wherever the user is, they should have everything all at one place. There I'm completely in sync with you. And also just want to go into the supercharger walls again. The opportunity that we have live right now on Okto as a user, not as somebody who's working in the Web3 space, but as a user, how do you think it's beneficial for users to try this opportunity out from an investor standpoint?
The main two advantages of WOOFi Supercharger Vaults is that they are passive. This is really attractive for people who like that idea. We talk about it a lot in crypto, this idea of like setting and forgetting. There are many of us. We in essence sort of like don't trust ourselves because maybe we get emotional about the price, right? And we see the market fluctuating. That can induce reactions in people and cause them to panic sell, etc. But they know long term, right? Maybe they think internally within a year, within 2 years, within 3 years, within 5 or 10, they believe that their asset will appreciate. They don't want to sell it. They just want to hodl it. They don't want to have to keep coming back to the app. They want to know that they can mentally check out, they can leave it there, they can park it there, they can come back in however many years time, and maybe when their life is a lot different, and they'll see those assets still in there. That's one advantage. And I think the second advantage is that these are single-sided. What do I mean by that to someone who's new to crypto? If you were to have entered crypto a couple of years ago, you would have found that if you wanted to earn yield on crypto assets, most of the time what you would have had to have done is pair your asset with another asset to provide liquidity in a 50-50 split. Maybe you wanted to earn yield on your ETH, you might have had to have paired that with like USDT or USDC, which is a stable coin. And a lot of people don't want to do that, right? Because they have no interest in holding that stable coin. They like ETH, they like Ethereum. That is what they want to hold. They don't want to hold anything else. And with a supercharger vault, you get to maintain what is 100% exposure to that asset that you like without compromising, right? Without having to sell some of it. These are probably the two major benefits. And maybe also the transparency that I alluded to earlier, Manisha. You know, I think as a user, if you look at what has unfolded in the crypto space over the past year, it's an unfortunate truth that there are bad actors. There are shady actors. Not everyone is here for the right reasons. Where there is opportunity, there are bad actors. And, you know, I want to know as a user if I'm leaving my assets with someone who is transparent, who tells me up front exactly how this works, spells it out, like dots the I's and crosses the T's, and tells me in plain English what I'm getting myself into. And I think this is definitely something which I would consider enticing. As like a yield farmer, I would have severe distrust of anywhere if they weren't exactly telling me how it works, or even if there were maybe if these vaults weren't sustainable. I think this is another thing which we can maybe talk more about. The idea of many APRs in DeFi can be deceiving. It goes back to the old adage, doesn't it? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And unfortunately, even I in the past would have fallen prey to this when I was setting out in DeFi. You know, you see a tasty APR and you think, this is incredible, I'm going to get involved. But you soon realize that that protocol is probably paying that yield in their native token. They are basically emitting tokens and diluting the supply to pay you your yield which means that they're diluting the supply faster than the rate at which you are earning, and you're actually losing money.
If you feel this way, so it's also like market sentiment, right? It's also like the economy is the vicious circle of the economy. You feel this way, and hence there's the demand because others also feel that way. Let's all jump into it, which is actually causing the APY.
I would say that WOOFi Supercharger Vaults, we take a stance which is very different to that. It's what, the yield here is what we would dub real in the industry, right? Which is that it's sustainable. You think about where that yield is coming from. We're not printing money to, like, printing it out of thin air to give you money. Think about it. WOOFi's liquidity manager, when they're borrowing your assets to provide liquidity, they are market making with that money, and they are making money. That is what they do best. They are able to pay the money to borrow those assets and give you money. They don't take a loss. This is sustainable. They could do this like year after year after year. And same with these third-party protocols that we're choosing. The yields, right? Where are the yields coming from for their vault? That's often from fees. If you think about, like, protocols like Aave and whatnot, they generate a lot of fees, and this is how they're able to pay these yields. So it's sustainable, and I think that's enticing as well.
I think that's also very important to know where the money is coming from, and the money is actually getting created to be able to give you the returns. Like, that's a very good DYOR thing, apart from looking at the enticing APY and questioning it, which is great. So for our viewers, you can go to the Okto app. In the earn section, you will see WOOFi Vault, in which there are a few tokens live as of now. You can click on that, enter your amount, check your details before you confirm the order, and then you can confirm. So George, before we end this, I want to ask, what can we expect in the WOOFi earning opportunities? What's coming the users' way? What's getting cooked up, which will be live soon?
Speaking more specifically about our partnership, maybe in the coming weeks and months, may be able to see more Supercharger Vaults become available on the Okto wallet. I think in total we have, if you look at how many WOOFi Supercharger Vaults we have, I think it's just shy of 20. 2 right now are live on the Okto wallet, so looking forward to seeing more assets supported so that Okto users have an even broader choice of earning opportunities at their fingertips. And as for like more earning opportunities, you can think of like WOOFi. We're already highly multi-chain, right? So we're deployed on most major chains. That doesn't mean that like we're actually not intending to deploy on more chains very soon. So I can bit of alpha for you. Even by the end of this month, potentially, we may be deploying onto a new chain, and that may bring with it even more earning opportunities. But I think that's the goal, right? Like, we recognize the space is still quite fragmented, right? Like there is a chance that the user could hold a host of different assets across a host of different chains. It is definitely in our interest to support as many of those assets and as many of those chains as possible. Like, if you want to become like a one-stop DeFi, then you have to act like, and you have to add that multi-chain support and provide enough options for the user such that they know if they own an asset on a major chain, it's highly likely that they can come to you to earn yield.
Yes, and as an extension to that, even at Okto, we are also trying to make this like a super app where not just multi-chain, we're also trying to build cross-chain bridges. So that's something that's going to be coming very soon for our users. So with multi-chain or cross-chain functionality all on one app. So when we have more tokens from WOOFi as well, so there'll be those enablements as well. Just one last question before we end the session. There are a lot of complexities in how you manage. While you talked about some of the safety angles of how are you managing the yields, but other staking complexities, what are those and how are you managing those?
Yeah, so I think the complexities, it goes back to the idea of DeFi being fragmented. I'll give you one example, right? If you look at WOOFi Supercharger Vaults, we actually have probably like 4 vaults for USDC, right? And those 4 vaults will be on 4 different chains. And what you'll notice is that, some of those vaults may have different yields. They all support USDC. One vault will be on Polygon, one will be on Phantom, one will be on BNB chain, and one will be on, for instance, Avalanche. And as a user, this presents a problem, right? Because it's like, I have my USDC on Phantom, for instance, right? And I can see the yield is 5% APR, but I'm looking and I can see that the APR for my USDC on Avalanche is maybe like 9%. And as a user, like, I want to get in that vault, but I have a problem because my USDC right now is on Phantom. So it's like, and this is incredibly confusing for someone who's starting out their journey in crypto. How do I get my USDC from Phantom over onto Avalanche? And I think WOOFi does this quite well because we have cross-chain swaps, and we've done I think it's more than like 400,000 cross-chain swaps to date now. We launched those last year, so I think people like them. Our DeFi lead Kevin, I think he's very well aware of like what it is that makes a good cross-chain experience.
Mm.
It needs to be user-friendly.
Yes.
You can't have having like multiple windows cropping up. It can't be slow. You need good pricing. And I think WOOFi strikes a balance between all of this. So this is one of the advantages of WOOFi, right? You know, we have different vaults. Though we have, like, for instance, 4 USDC vaults across 4 different chains, you could just move your USDC across these chains really quickly. And I'm talking genuinely in, like, 20 seconds.
Real time?
Yeah. If you're just bridging USDC across chains, you do it real quick, and then you could just literally just put your USDC in a vault that has high yield. And I think that's probably one way in which we navigate the complexities minutia, and also maybe the dashboard as well. If you look at the dashboard, it doesn't matter which chain you are connected to on our app, you can always see the whole host of assets that are available, which I think is like quite convenient.
Yeah, awesome. It was great knowing some of these details from yourself, from the marketing team of WOOFi. Looking forward to seeing a lot of opportunities on Okto, and I hope we'll have you soon on our sessions and talk about DeFi Web3 in general to our audience. That'd be great.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Manisha. It's like a genuine pleasure to be here, and I just want to reiterate how excited we are to be partnered with you guys, and looking forward to seeing in what more ways we can make DeFi more accessible.
By transferring crypto to Okto wallet, you confirm understanding its risk. We make no warranties or representations about third-party material on Okto or value, utility, or legal status of crypto. There is no legal recourse for any loss from such transaction.